Okay, it's 4 o'clock and it's the final panel. I know it's getting warm in here. We're probably all getting tired. Let's finish on a high, everybody. So I have 5 wonderful authors here I'd like to introduce to you. First of all, we have Louise McBain here. And Louise is the author of romance novels Maybe Charlotte, Astrid Inside Out, Sweet Jane, and Claiming Camille. And her latest novel, On a Wing and a Chair, is a contemporary romance between a sweet rock musician and a somewhat down on her luck musologist, and was published by Bella Books back in November. Louise lives with her family and dogs by the Potomac River in Washington, D.C., and hikes the floodplain every morning. And a fun fact about her is she writes on a private island where she's a ferry operator. Sounds marvelous. And Cheri Ritz. Cheri's next book, An Acquired Taste, comes out this July, and she loves a good romance, so writing happily ever after stories to share with the world is a dream come true. Cheri enjoys family time with her wife, 3 sons, and the sweetest cat in the world. I could argue with that. I've got a couple. And likes spending cozy weekends marathoning TV shows and brushing up on pop culture trivia. She's also an avid crafter. Cheri lives in a suburb of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And a couple of fun facts. This is a good one. Cheri used to be a dance teacher and specializes in tap. Would you care to? No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. And also a big beer snob, and is going to be tomorrow at the bookstore, right? At the book pop-up store. Excellent. At the Gingers over in Brooklyn. Okay, next we have M. Ullrich. And M published her first book, Fortunate Sum, with Bold Strokes Books back in 2016. 11 novels, 1 novella, and a few short stories later, she continues her quest to bend the romance genre norms and keeps her readers guessing. M's latest novel, The Laws of Magic, may be a love story about a small town witch, but beneath the surface, it takes a look at how society treats others. A couple of fun facts about M. She can't resist new mugs or socks, even though her limited closet and cabinet space begs her to. I'm with you on the mugs. My family are despairing of that. And if you would cut her open, she would bleed pop music and coffee. Wouldn't we all? Okay, on my left here, Cindy Rizzo is the author of 5 novels, as well as short stories and essays. The first 2 books of her young adult speculative fiction trilogy, The Paper Cutter and The Border Crosser, were published by Bella Books in 2021 and 2022. Her first novel, Exception to the Rule, won the 2014 Goldie for Best Debut Author. Her short stories and essays have appeared in Unwrap These Presents, Conference Call, Language of Love, Our Happy Hours, LGBT Voices from the Gay Bars, and Medium.com. And Cindy publishes a regular newsletter of curated content for authors and readers of Sapphic fiction. She was recently elected to the board of GCLS. She lives in NYC with her wife and is a consultant for social justice philanthropy. And finally, Anne Aptaker is the author of Lambda and Goldie award-winning Cantor Gold Crime and Mystery series, and has been favorably reviewed in publications such as Crime Reads, Mystery Scene magazine, and others. She's provided literary essays for Crime Reads and for the respected journal Mystery Readers International. Anne's latest book in the Cantor Gold series is Hunting Gold and was released last year. Her short stories have appeared in 2 editions of the Fedora Crime Anthology, Switchblades magazine Stiletto Healed issue, Black Cat Mystery magazine, and 2 editions of Mickey Finn 21st Century Noir Crime Anthologies. In addition to her literary work, Anne has a long career and curator and exhibition designer for galleries and museums across the country. Then she was a professor of art history at the New York Institute of Technology. And when she's not writing, Anne enjoys watching old movies and eating lots of cookie dough ice cream. Okay, so this panel's about where are our readers? So I'm going to ask some questions and we'll go down the line and see what everybody thinks. So guys, who is your typical reader, do you think? And who is your ideal reader? And are the 2 different? We'll start with you, Em.
Okay, so my ideal reader is anybody who just wants to read my books, but also somebody who isn't afraid of possibly a story that's emotional. You know, like my ideal reader wouldn't mind, you know, having to buy an extra box of tissues when they go grocery shopping. I think my typical reader, for the most part, fits the bill. I think they do overlap quite a bit. yeah, I think I'm pretty lucky in that. I think there's a good amount of readers out there that aren't afraid of some tears. Yeah. Yes, for me, I'm very fortunate.
Okay, Cheri.
I don't know if there's a difference between my typical reader and ideal. I mean, ideally, I would like everyone to read my book.
Wouldn't we all?
But a contemporary romance, sapphic romance reader is probably my typical and most likely an ideal reader as well.
Okay, Louise.
My ideal reader is somebody who gets the joke, because I'm really just trying to be funny most of the time. And, you know, I'll get a letter or a review from somebody and it will be, they got the joke. And that's all that I really care about. You know, I just want them to see what I see, you know? And so I think the ideal reader, I mean, the people that are reading my books are the ones that do get the joke, because yeah,
They keep coming back.
they keep coming back. So I think it's kind of the same.
Cindy?
When I write contemporary romance, my readers are typically the people that like contemporary romance, which is a lot of people. But the last two books I've written are speculative fiction, young adult. And I think most of the readers that have liked it and read it are people that care about social issues, because it's about the United States splitting into two countries. And the political division of the countries. And it's about a lot about anti-Semitism and racism. So you have to really care about social justice to want to read those books, even though, you know, I think there's a lot in them. But I guess those would be the typical reader for the trilogy.
Anne?
Well, you'll have to excuse me. I'm getting over a terrible cold, and so my voice is sort of squeaky. My ideal reader, like others have said, is anybody who buys my books. You all have exquisite taste. Who the typical reader is, there's some of my readers are here. So if I mischaracterize you, I'm terribly sorry, because I suppose I really don't know who my typical reader is. I would guess, since what's out there largely are mystery and crime fiction, the Cantor Gold series is written from the point of view of the criminal. So it would be somebody who sort of sympathizes with the criminal element and why they're criminals. And in Cantor's case, there's a very specific reason why she's a criminal. So it would have to be someone who likes the noir, the sort of darker edge of fiction, of crime and mystery fiction, of whodunits, and why. It's not so much only whodunit, but why done it. And if you enjoy that, you'll enjoy my books, and they're out there on the pop-up books.
Okay, Anne, keep hold of the mic. We'll come back the other way. So we've established pretty much who you think your ideal reader is. How do you connect with readers in the real world?
Social media, needless to say. I do hear from people through Facebook Messenger. I mean, I don't, willy-nilly give out my personal email addresses, as most of you would certainly understand, but, I'm easily contacted through Facebook Messenger. Now, I say that with a caveat, if you're just coming to say, hi, I love you, I want to marry you, you're not going to get a response. I think you're beautiful. Well, thank you very much, but you're not going to get a response. But I do get through Messenger, people who talk about my books and say, I read your book, and then they express what it is they want to tell me. And then I can correspond with readers through that very happily. So I would have to say largely through social media, unlike my friend here, Cindy, who is now shaming me into starting a newsletter. It's something I probably need to do. I've been trying to have a website for years. That has not gotten off the ground. You can Google, or you can type in, Aptaker.com, and a placeholder page that's 1 million years old will come up. I do have a WordPress blog site that I do blog on. I put essays up from time to time, and that's fun. I really do enjoy that. I'm sort of overdue to write another one, but sort of keep an eye out for that. And that's essentially how I contact readers. And then events like these. Yeah.
Okay, great. Cindy?
Also, I started out with mostly social media, mostly Facebook, which is where I have the most contact with people, but increasingly Twitter as well. But I started a newsletter mostly because I've been to panels like these where everybody says, you know, KC and TV and everybody says, start a newsletter. And I just didn't want to do the typical newsletter of like, here's my book, or, you know, this is where I went. So I'm very good at curating content. It's something I do on my job and I really, really love. And on my job, I work at a private foundation, or I did until the end of the last year. I curated content that was very much about the foundation, that was aligned with the foundation's strategy. But for Cindy's incredibly useful newsletter, which I put down some things around, you know, with a QR code for you if you want to subscribe. It's basically curated content. There's a little bit about me, but it's mostly curated content about Sapphic and other books. So any news you can, and then there's news you can use, which is mostly related to queer women and what's going on with lesbians, bisexual, and other queer women. I think it's a really great resource for people to have, and I have all sorts of tools in there that you can use. So I tried to do something a little different than what I saw from other people. I don't know if it's going to sell any of my books, but I'm really kind of into it and jazzed by it, which is why I put stuff out here about it. But it's hard. You know, one of the reasons why I really wanted to be on this panel is because and Anne and I have had conversations about this. If you don't write romance, it's very hard to find your readers if you're writing something that has sapphic content. And I noticed that with Paper Cutter and The Border Crosser, because as much as there are queer characters in it, the Paper Cutter really has one scene that's about two girls coming together, and it's not in the, you know, most of the book. And you know, I know that one of the reasons it probably wasn't scored very highly in the Goldies is because one of the questions judges have to answer is how much lesbian content is in this book, or how much sapphic content, and which is fine. I mean, I'm fine with that. But the problem it really raises for me is, you know, what does that mean in terms of finding readers? Because there's a lot in there about Judaism. So I sort of tried to market to more Jewish audiences, but, you know, it's queer and it's young adult. So there's a lot of intersections there that not everybody really wants to grab a hold of. And I was really motivated to write this trilogy because I really wanted to think through that thought experiment of what would happen if the country divided, which we hear about a lot in the news. So the question of where are my readers is really one that keeps plaguing me and making me think about how do I reach readers, and that's why I really wanted to have this conversation today.
Just while we touched on that, though, you said that you're actually out of the genre in many ways. How do you then market it in the areas that you want to market? I know you're going for the romance first of all because that's where the bigger audience is. Right. How do you drive it down? Well, somewhat young adult, because young adults seem to stretch a lot and read a lot of fantasy and read a lot of dystopia, and you know, they're not just romance readers, so they go sort of across the board within young adult, across genres. So I tried with that. I tried with Jewish audiences, and I became part of this thing called the Jewish Book Network, and you know, I had some success with it, but it wasn't great. And I think also if you're not mainstream published, when you go outside of sort of the Sapphic audience, it's very hard to sort of grab hold of other mainstream audiences. So I still have that question in my mind, and I have to finish this trilogy first so I can go on to other things. Great, thank you. Okay, Louise, how do you connect with your readers, or your publishing house connects with your readers?
Personally, I connect with them primarily on Facebook. And I've made the choice to reveal personal things about myself and my art and just my life, because there's a lot of competition in romance, you know, and I feel like if I can connect with them on a personal level, share some, but this is a choice. Like, not everybody wants to have their personal stuff out there, but I do. And I find that it kind of personalizes me to the readers, and I get them that way. But, you know, in the last year, we have actively been hunting down the readers. We started Sapphic Lit Pop-Up because we wanted to facilitate direct sales. to the readers, and we wanted to meet them. And it's been really interesting. Really interesting. At DC Pride last year, there were 500,000 people there, and they did not know that this existed. And that's what everybody kept coming to our table. And it was just electrifying to watch them look at the covers, to see what genres they wanted, to see what they were literally choosing the books by the cover because they had no idea who we were or what it was about. And so now we're going to bars because that is where people want to spend the money, right? And women in bars and books.
Are we talking about us or them?
All of us. We're talking about everybody, but it works. And I don't know if anybody saw the documentary, The Lesbian Bar Project. There's just not that many left. And so it's a real safe space, and it's a community where people are spending money. And the manager always says yes every time we call and says, we're going to pop up. They're like, great, bring all your ladies. And then we have a great time and we sell a lot of books. And we're popping up at Ginger's in Brooklyn tomorrow. Yeah.
Somewhere around here.
Ginger's in Brooklyn.
Tomorrow. Yeah. 3 to 5. And I'll just tell one little anecdote. A young gal was here and she came up to our table and she said, I came to this today because I saw y'all in DC at the pop-up and I recognized your logo on the thing. So we're trying to create this all over the country. We want this to be, everybody to be a part of this. It's a democratic thing across publishers. Everybody join in.
Fantastic. Cheri?
My answer isn't very different than others. I'm going to say social media, Twitter. I love to chat on Twitter. But one other thing that I will say for finding readers is through tropes. You know, here's some tropes that I'm writing. Don't you love these? Because we have such wonderful romance tropes, the fake romance, the workplace romance, the ice queens. I mean, people have favorites. And if they know that they can find something, oh, that's my favorite kind of thing, they might pick up your book. And it's a good way to connect. Yeah. And it feels like something in common. Oh, I like ice queens. You like ice queens? Yeah.
Agree. But social media is a big one. I'm more centered on like Instagram, but like Louise was saying, it's my personal Instagram for the most part. You see what I'm doing. You see what I'm being foolish about, what I'm being silly about, what I'm creating, what I'm writing, what books are out. And tropes, hashtag office romance. You put that in there, people are going to see it. And I think the coolest thing about Instagram or even like TikTok with book talk now, people can tag you in what they're sharing. So I've been tagged a good handful of times in other people's stories, and boom, right there is a reader for me to connect with and build a reader-author relationship with. And it's been phenomenal.
Great. Just touching on that, we talked about revealing ourselves to our readers. Yeah, not that far. Let's not go too far. We're not in the bar yet. So a question that was put forward is this one. Self-promotion feels weird, but is necessary evil for most, if not all authors. What self-promotion do you engage in? What works best for you? Which do you enjoy the most? And what's your least favorite self-promo? We all hate this, but we need to be talked about. Specifically social media, I suppose. What works best for you and what doesn't? What do you try and engage in?
I love talking about myself. I think all of us do on a certain degree, but self-promotion, it just, oh God, it's so uncomfortable. I haven't really honestly found one type of like self-promotion that feels comfortable and is effective. Kind of a funny story about it is, I think not my most recent book, the one before it, I did a giveaway and I was so excited. I put it on my Instagram. I put it on my Facebook, my author Facebook, personal, you name it. I was all the emojis, because supposedly emojis are what catch people's attention. Everything. Nobody entered. And all you had to do was comment something. It was an easy one because I feel like when they get too complicated, you're going to lose people. It's something so easy. Like comment a recipe. We all know a recipe. Not one person commented. Oh, wow. Actually, I take it back. I got one person who said, I read this. It was so great. I'm not entering, but I just wanted you to know. I was like, well, that made me feel a little bit better. Yeah. But
Does
Yeah.
not back like that stop you from doing it again? Have you kept things going?
I'm a sucker for punishment.
Yeah.
So I'll probably do it again because I love free stuff. So if I can give away stuff, I would do that too. So I would do it again.
Yeah. It's
But-
hard though. You're right. It feels completely alien, doesn't it? To
Oh
self-promote
my
yourself.
God, it's terrible.
Bizarre.
A signed copy of my book. My new book that was coming out. And I think I even like teased, like, I'll throw other mystery goodies in the box. And I really do. I would throw anything, extra books, literally like strange things. I think I had an extra Captain Marvel pop vinyl once. I threw that in a box
any
for somebody who
success?
bought books. I got a response. I was like, oh my
Okay.
God, this is great. But nobody's entering my
We're tapping
contest.
into a new
So if you follow me and you see a contest, it will be worth your while.
Okay. Cheri, how have your experience been?
I love a good cover reveal. So I love the excitement building up, and it's like, I can finally tell you, I can finally share this. I'm so happy to tell everyone because we all love our covers, right? And we're proud of them. And we just said the covers are selling the books. So, and I love when people do, like, they show a little strip of the, like, ooh, here it comes, the tease. Yeah, everyone likes the tease, but yeah, that's one of my go-to for self-promo, like, here it comes.
Right. Yeah. Louise?
I hate self-promotion. I really do. I barely even put it online when a new book comes out because I just feel, it's one of the reasons I wanted to be involved with Sapphic Lit Pop-Up, because it's a sorority and I can hide with all these other gals and it's not just me out there hanging in the breeze. I did something similar to M. My first novel, I self-published and it never existed as a book. It just didn't. And then 2 years ago, my family really sweetly actually gave me a box of books. They published it for me and I put it up on Facebook. Yay, like the book that, never was actually a book is there. Who wants one? Crickets. Like, I was going to give them for free. Okay. For free. And it's just like, and then you're just like, okay, I'm never, ever going to never doing that again. So it's hard.
It is hard.
It's really hard. And I don't like the, Bella, I published with Bella. They'll sometimes like do these like interview things, where they put you on the spot and you have to talk. And I get way too caffeinated and it's just, and I'm so mortified afterwards. I wouldn't have put it for anybody. Yeah. But it's just.
I have the same problem with wine. It always seems to creep into interviews. I don't know how it happens. Cindy?
Well, in addition to what everyone said, when the paper cutter was published in 2021, I actually self-organized an online reading of it. And I had Linda Hill, the publisher of Bella Books, introduce me. And I got a pretty good audience. It was a lot of people I knew. But I did publicize it. I don't know how many books got sold because of it. And Bella does do this monthly like new release event every month where they have authors read. So that's another way that people can promote their work. But I don't do enough. I mean, I'm not uncomfortable with it. I just, it's more like how many hours in the day do you have to do all this stuff? But I know that like I put Catherine Mayorisi on the spot. She will put up a post on Facebook with like excerpts from good reviews that her new book has gotten. And I think that's a really great thing to do. I've never done it because I just haven't pulled it together, but not because I haven't gotten good reviews, but I think that that's another way to promote. And, if we don't do it, no one will do it. The publishers do so much. If you're published by someone, they do so much, but you have to pick up the rest of it. And if you're self-published, you just have to do it.
Yeah. Anne?
Yes, in addition to what the rest of the panel has said, but there's also something else that I do that keeps my name and my presence on social media. And that is, for some of you who may already know, I travel a bit, and I've had the great privilege for the last 3 years of being able to spend 3 months a year in Paris. which really is a great privilege. I have a very good set of friends there, and they give me a place to stay for free. So, duh. Duh. Which was about all I can afford to do. I mean, if the only thing you can afford to do in life is go to Paris, you go to goddamn Paris. But the point of that is that I also am a native New Yorker, and I love this city with my soul. So in both places, in Paris and in New York, I take an enormous amount of photographs. I love taking photographs, and I post them all over the place on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, and so on. And that serves two purposes. First of all, it's just something I really enjoy doing. And it connects me with a lot of people because they like to most people don't live in Paris or New York. And these photographs, of course, on social media go all across the country and all around the world. And they go to tiny little places where the folks who live there may never go to Paris and New York. And so I give them pieces of Paris and New York. And I get a lot of pleasure from doing this. And I get a lot of very positive feedback from people who write to me on Facebook Messenger or through Instagram. I love your photographs. Thanks for doing this. I hear you write books. I'm going to pick up your book, and I don't have to say that I'm right. I've written these books. It's just another way of keeping my presence in front of people. Now, occasionally on the New York photographs, if it's appropriate, not often, but if the photograph is appropriate, if it has this kind of noir feeling or whatever, I might say, this is a Cantor Gold place. This is a scene Cantor Gold may have seen back in her day, and so on. So that's how I kind of self-promote. The other thing that I take advantage of are podcasts. I don't happen to run one myself, but I know a number of people who do. And some of them have graciously invited me on their podcast, and others I've, written to them and say, hey, how would you like to have a new book coming out such and such a time? I would love to be on your podcast. And if they, most of the people are very gracious about it. They may not be able to accommodate me at the same time as the book releases, but they can usually find a spot somewhere along the line. So those are my two methods of doing it. And one day I may get around to a newsletter.
Thank you. Okay, so once you've found your readers, how do you keep them? Do you feel the pressure to write the same genre all the time, or the same sort of story structure to please them? A lot of people have, a lot of authors have a super fan in mind, perhaps they write to once they're established. Do you have somebody in mind that you write to? Can you stray from it?
I don't know that I have a super fan that I write to. But how do I keep my readers, and do I stray from my genre? I haven't strayed from my genre yet. The Cantor Gold books, as I mentioned, take place in New York in the 1950s. And now my readers for that they're very special, if I say so myself. I alluded earlier to the fact that she's a criminal. And what people enjoy about her criminality is that they can feel comfortable with her criminality, especially my Sapphic readers and others in the LGBT community, or for that matter, any marginalized people. The reason she's a criminal, she is an out butch lesbian in the 1950s. So at that time, of course, she was a criminal essentially just for breathing. So she figures if the law is going to label her a criminal just for who she takes to dinner or kisses, that she doesn't owe the law any allegiance at all. Why should she? They're going to criminalize her and throw her in jail if they could, just for being alive. So my readers like that. Interestingly, in addition to Sapphic women and LGBT community readers, I also have a number of straight women readers. And the reason they like Cantor has nothing to do with her being lesbian. Some may live vicariously through that, but most don't. They like her because she's a woman who takes control of her life on her own terms, even at great risk. And for a lot of women, this really resonates. So I keep my readers because something I write connects with them. Now, I also write short stories, believe it or not, in the mainstream press. Some of them have sapphic characters and some of them don't. One of my most successful, please don't hate me, please, one of my most successful short stories was a lesbian woman who had serious issues. She was a professional assassin. And the reason, and she did it very well. She was a very successful assassin. And the thing that drove her when she would get an assignment to kill people and so on. And in this particular story, it was a revenge story, so don't ask. But what drove her to kill, what sort of got her juices going when she knew she had to go out and kill, she had really serious mother issues. And this harridan would be screaming in her head when she had to go out to kill. And that was the most successful short story I ever wrote. Go figure. But as far as keeping readers, my next book takes place in New York in 1899, and it has this Sapphic couple who they are on the right side of the law, sort of. They're private investigators, but they're a little sketchy. And so it's not that I've strayed out of the mystery and crime genre as much as maybe I've strayed out of one particular type. The central, I've written the most books in the Cantor Gold series, but they're not the only books. So the people who read any one of my books or short stories tend to follow me to the other books and short stories because they are mystery and crime readers that like my author's voice, and they follow me around.
Okay, Cindy.
Well, I guess when you write either a series, and we touched on this in the last panel, or a trilogy like I am, there are people who ask me, when's the third book coming out? When is the next one coming? And in my case, the books really do have to follow one another because there is a thread that goes through. And we need to know how these characters survive. So as soon as I know, you'll know. So I think the readers who, for the trilogy, are people that are really looking for that third book and are just kind of like, hurry up and do it. And then in my head, I think where I go next is back to romance or sapphic fiction that isn't as, is kind of like general fiction, but with romance in it. Those are the kind of, I have a couple of books sitting around in my head that are like that. So I just have to write, what motivates me and what I think about a lot. So it's hard because my wife is saying, you made a lot of money writing romance. What are you doing now? Why are you doing this? So, and it's true, but, you just have to go with where you're motivated. So I'm hoping that the people that have read the first two books are really interested in picking up the third one and finishing the trilogy.
Thank you. Louise, how do you keep your readers?
Well, Cindy just used the word motivated. I would use the word muse. I can't write something that's not like in me that I feel. And so keeping the readers, it's more about me, it's more about what I want to write. I'm more writing for my editor right now because I'm so scared of her. But it does keep you honest, and it makes you better if you pay attention to what your reviews say, the thoughtful reviews anyway. And then if you have a good editor, they bring you along and you just up your game every single time, but I'm writing for me. I think everybody's writing for themselves. I mean, at the end of the day, mm-hmm. right? The joy is in the process.
Mm-hmm. Cheri?
It was funny when you asked this because you said about could you switch? Would your readers come?
Yeah.
And it's funny, I was thinking about, I had this great idea, well, in my mind, great for a young adult book. And I was like, oh, I really want to write that, but I'm not sure. My romance readers now, if they were to receive a young, if they were like, oh, Cheri Ritz, and then they're like, wait a minute, what are these kids doing here?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
I feel like they'd let them down. I was going to say feel tricked, but I would make it very clear. This is, but on the other hand, like if I would write a young adult book and then they'd say, oh, that was fun. Cheri Ritz. I'm going to pick up one of her other books that she wrote before. They should not be young adults should not be reading my other books, probably.
Right. But if you can repackage them, right?
Right. So, so something would have to give for that. And it kind of then blew my mind. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just put that idea on the back burner, but it's kind of an interesting proposition.
So does that mean that you feel like you're in a way trapped to the genre that you're writing?
I'm very attached to it.
Yeah.
But my heart's very attached to it too.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with it.
Okay. Em?
So I think most of my readers already know that I'm going to write romance, but my subgenres, those are where I'm going to kind of play around. So I don't really feel so much like locked into a genre to keep readers. I've dabbled a little bit of time travel, some supernatural, more general fiction, but with a romance throughout it. I think my downfall a little bit is production. Readers, especially the Sapphic community. I mean, they're hungry for more, and I don't want to run into a burnout situation. Where when I started out, it was like 3 books a year, 2 books in a novella. And now it's like, okay, I can't do that anymore. So that's really where I'm kind of running into a tougher situation with keeping readers, but that's where reader connection really comes in big time, and just being present still and, showing other facets, you talk about like crafting and stuff, like connecting on other levels where you're like, hey, I am creative and I am creating. We could talk about writing, but hey, look what I just did. Just like yeah, exactly. Like the more personal connection kind of, keeps them hopefully interested and,
Yeah. And while you've got the mic, do you read your own reviews? Do you all read your own reviews? And does that also affect how you write in the future?
Yes.
Does it help you fine tune what you're writing? I mean, to feed back to the readers are actually reading your stuff?
Yes, I do think a good handful of reviews, especially leaning into like not like negative, but like the ones that point out the shortcomings of a novel, you learn from those.
Yeah.
Anything that is constructive is beneficial, period. I think I did get to a point, I used to be obsessive, like not good for you, obsessive about reviews. And then I got like an onslaught of just not great ones at one point. Not necessarily all bad, but we all know it. Just a little bad is terrible. Like it jumps right to that. And it was like a wake up call. I haven't really read any since, and it's been a good chunk of time. I couldn't do it anymore. It was not good for me. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to step away, and it's been great. It's been really good. I will probably go back to reading them eventually because, again, sucker for punishment. But right now, I feel really good about not reading them. But you really do learn from them.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Cheri, do you read your reviews? Do you learn or change anything you do because of them?
Well, I'm going to say the same thing. Like I have to be in the right headspace to be able to take it in and deal. And if I'm not going to go there just to be safe. But it's not going to change my writing process necessarily, but it may change how I think about things, how I express things. Sometimes you see something in a review that's kind of a read the room moment, like maybe you better think this through, which, like you said, I kind of want to know. But 5 stars only, please. No, no. But also reviews, readers need to be able to do their reviews.
Yeah.
They need to say how they feel.
Yeah.
And readers need to share that among themselves.
Absolutely.
So I also try to keep in mind that it's for readers.
Louise, how about you?
Yeah, I do. I read them. And it's funny, I have an anecdote last week, and I just put this on Facebook because I share everything on Facebook, but I hadn't checked reviews for my latest novel in a while, and there were 2 new ones. And one of them, I couldn't believe they were talking about the same book. One of them was the loveliest, most thoughtful, well-written. They got the joke, right? And the other one was just 3 lines of hated it. And it was like, why even take the time, to do that? And
Just told me that one time.
Yeah.
That one way was fine.
yeah, but it was really instructive for me, just as an author, to see them and go, okay, it's not for everybody. This isn't for everybody. She got it. This one person, that was enough. And this other person, like, I don't know why they had to be such a hater, but
Yeah, they're not for everybody.
but they're not for everybody. But some of the people do the advanced reader reviews. Some of those women are wonderful, and they really put a lot of thought into them. And I do pay attention to those. I do.
Thanks. Cindy?
That makes sense about the ARC readers. I read mine more. I focus more on them at the beginning when the book is first released to see what's coming up. And then I periodically, maybe every few months, will check back and read reviews and see what people have said since. And in terms of my reaction to them, they're kind of all over the place. There were some reviews of The Paper Cutter that I actually thought through. At first I was like, what are they talking about? And then a couple of reviews said the same thing. And so I felt like I had to pay attention to it. So when I wrote the Border Crosser, I really tried not to do that same thing that I heard people talk about. And so that was helpful in a way, even though it was critical. Then there are things that people have said, the Border Crosser, the arc of there's 3 main characters in the trilogy, and each of the books has an arc of each of the characters. And the arc of this middle book is around a teenager really who's Jewish but wasn't brought up religious, really starting to appreciate what it means to be closer to your faith. And so a lot of the reviews were like, there's so much religion in this and all of that. And so it made me think, like, we need to have a conversation about writing about faith in these books, because this is what people live with a lot and are up against a lot, and not everybody is turned off by it or doesn't deal with it at all. So that's kind of my feeling about that. What I don't like, we talked earlier in another panel about reviews, and I just wanted to say this. When people said this book isn't for me, that's fine to say, but then don't give it 2 or 3 stars. I mean, that's a comment on the book, on the quality of the book. If you want to say the book wasn't for me, don't put any stars on it. That's kind of my feeling about it.
Mm-hmm.
If the book was bad quality, or it bored you, or it sagged in the middle, or you couldn't believe certain things were incredible, then lower star ratings make sense. But for people, I've seen reviews on Goodreads, not even my books, but like, oh, I don't know why I read this. I don't even like YA. I never read YA. Well, then don't review the damn book. It wasn't written for you. So, that's a little bit of my pet peeves on reviews.
Okay, Anne?
Like Cindy, I'll also read reviews when a book first comes out, sort of see what's what, especially the ARC books, readers, because they usually take more time and they're more thoughtful than, gee, I love this book, or gee, I hated this book. And then as time goes on, I'll, check back in, it's maybe yes, maybe no. But insofar as, crummy review stories, I got a review once. This woman gave me 1 star on Goodreads and 2 stars for the same book on Amazon. She liked the book. She went on to say that she loves all of my work, but she hated one scene. And so she gave it 1 star or 2, one on one site and one on the other. Now, the thing that really made that really particularly galling was that this woman is, or shall I say, was a friend. And you don't do that to a friend.
Ouch. Wow.
So that was that.
Wow.
But that leads me to say that as far as, to segue perfectly into my feeling about reviews, it really depends who's writing them. When I'll see on Amazon or Facebook or Goodreads that it's somebody who, either clearly has an agenda that, they had somebody say, since I don't write romance, I write crime and mystery. And they'll say, one reader said, this is a lesbian book. It was supposed to have romance. It didn't have enough for me, 2 stars. It's crazy. I said, right. Why read the book? Yeah. So for me, the reviews matter only insofar as who's writing them. If they treat the book respectfully, even if they don't like the book, fine and dandy. If they treat the book and therefore me, the author, or any of us as the author with disrespect, well, fuck you. That's it.
Touche. And on that note, let's open it up to audience questions. Anyone have any questions for our lovely panel? Anybody? Otherwise, I've got one more. Okay, I'd quite like to hear, I'm pretty sure all of us have some funny or some wonderful stories about readers that have got in touch with us. What's your favorite story of a reader getting in touch with you, giving you feedback? Can be hilarious. What's your favorite tidbit? Em, should we start with you?
Well, okay. I didn't have anything particularly hilarious, but I did have some heartwarming things. And I mentioned earlier about heterosexual women who like the books because they like Cantor taking her life into her own hands under her own terms. But the most frightening ones, I had a stalker. I actually had two, but one went away real quickly. But I had a stalker.
What did you do to them?
I had a Facebook stalker through Messenger, and that was a little scary. That was scary.
Okay, Cindy.
Thank goodness I haven't had stalkers. Just those people that say, have you heard the good news? And they want to sell you some crazy thing. I report them and block them right away. This is a funny story. The second book I wrote, Love Is Enough, took place in Boston. Some of it took place in DC, but mostly it took place in Boston, where I lived for 27 years. And one of the main characters was a congresswoman from Medford, Massachusetts, where I also lived for many years. And she and her mom were wanting to have a private conversation. And they drove from, any of you who live in the Boston area or have lived there will appreciate this. They drove from Medford to Jamaica Pond. And I said that they got there in 20 minutes. And some guy wrote to me and said, you could never get to Jamaica Pond in 20 minutes. And so I went on, I think back then it was like MapQuest or something. And I mapped it out and I sent it to him and I said, see, if there's no traffic, you can get to Jamaica Pond in 20 minutes. But that was like my funniest feedback from a reader.
Google Maps and author. Louise.
I don't know if it's funny or not, but I did get correspondence from a fan. This gal, she's so nice and she writes wonderful reviews, just lovely. And she messaged me and, oh, love the book and whatever. And then she's like, but Bella's really fallen off. There's 10 typos in it. And I did not know how to respond because I hadn't had it last. They had it last, And so I said, thank you so much. Could you let me know what they are? I mean, and then she didn't respond to it. I wasn't snarky. I was just very like, yeah. So if you guys see the typos, let me know. I don't know what they are.
Cheri.
No, that was funny. One of the things I like to do on social media to interact is like just polls. I like to do those Twitter polls. And I am a pole dancer.
A pole tap dancer, we now know.
I'm on a panel. I end up saying something. I write in the shower. I'm a pole dancer. So, and sometimes they're just random things. What is your favorite condiment? What do you like to dip your French fries in? Because, I kind of want to know what other taste treats are out there. But I did one and I put this emoji and it was a face. And I said, what are they really, what are we really trying to express when we use this particular face? And I had silly answers, just like, oh, beer me or whatever. And God bless this person. They got in they actually commented and said, will people use that emoji to express when they want to say something shocking or surprise? And I was like, I was just being silly. I was really just...
Okay, Em, wrap us up.
Mine's not really a funny story, but so I'm a fan of David Sedaris. I don't know if you've read any of like his essay collections, and I got to go to a reading and a signing for him. And he would talk to you while he was signing, and he would draw pictures in the book. And I was like, what a cool thing to do. Like, and he's not an artist, but like, it was just like cool. So I kind of like adopted that a little bit going on. And I had this one reader who caught wind of it, and she was just blown away by the idea. And she was like, I would love for you to draw in my book. So it was at Women's Week in P-Town. So I took her book back to like my little inn, and I drew and I gave it back to her. She reached out to me for her birthday and repurchased all of my paperbacks through me so that I could draw in all of them for her. To come up with the ideas for each one was tricky, but I did it though. And it was so much fun. And she was like, anything that you do in the future with like your creativity and your art and stuff, I'm there with you, but please don't stop writing too.
Right, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that one. Okay, let's thank our final panel. Thanks everybody for taking part. And Betsy's going to come and close off the afternoon.